Lurkers of the Deathstorm Barrows. Relentless creatures, formless manifestations of chaos and fear, ripped into existence against their will, scouring the shadows of SpireHelm with only a single drive: devour. The villagers have tried their best to ward off their emergence, but there is something that even they don't know about the Lurkers' true nature that may lead to their ultimate demise. Hi guys, I'm Cam, and if you're new to SpireHelm, then welcome. SpireHelm is an open, collaborative world-building project, so the world is open to be built by anyone. I have provided a light framework of like a retro dark fantasy world, and my viewers and I are filling it with lore and legends, all without the use of AI. I fell in love with this idea of the Lurkers the second I read about them, so I thought it'd be really cool to design some aspects of the creatures and present the idea to you all here. And I hope this video inspires you in some way to write, draw, or create something yourself. If you're not familiar with how this project works, I have another video going over the basics. But in short, each of us takes the role of collectors from the Grand Archive that belongs to the Kingdom of SpireHelm. If we have ideas for the world, we don't simply give the lore as is, but we package it within the setting into something like a scroll or a journal or an artifact or a song. That is then preserved into this kingdom's grand archive. This makes for a much deeper lore building experience and allows us to collaborate even better with one another. We've had many great ideas come to the archive so far, and I'm really excited to get a chance to work on some of them and design them for you here on this channel. So in this case, the Lurkers was not my idea, but an original idea from one of the collectors of the archive, or in our world, a writer or creator. So Vincerus, in this case, submitted his ideas for the Lurkers of the Deathstorm Barrows in the form of a secret study carried out by the archive and its collectors. Within its pages, he documented their experience and recordings while researching these monsters. Why a secret study? We'll get to that in a bit. If you want to read the full submission, which comes out to about 2 pages, there's a link in the tome below to the Discord where you can find it in the magic and mysticism section. But then that brings up another question. Why magic and mysticism and not flora, fauna, and monsters? Remember what I said about the villagers misunderstanding the Lurkers' true nature? These Lurkers are hardly creatures at all. But then how do they consume? Or maybe better yet, what do they consume? In making this video, I tasked myself with the impossible job of designing these creatures, not bound by any shape. You see, according to the record submitted to the archive, these creatures appear in a form that guarantees an instillment of fear in its victims. Not too dissimilar from the Boggart from Harry Potter. Which means these creatures could appear as almost anything. While it may be difficult to give a perfect description of how these creatures would appear to the common folk, there are some underlying similarities that were observed by the collectors carrying out the study. Let's look first to where they come from, which might be the beginning of answering the question about their nature. Their origins seem to be related to the death storms that barrel across the land. Here's what the record says about what many villagers do following these storms. They take each deceased victim they find in the aftermath and throw it into a grave en masse, or rather a burial mound, which the locals have taken to calling a Deathstorm Barrow. To prevent the evil one from exercising influence, the villagers will place a seal on each barrow, attempting to ward the interference of the Dark One. I am sorry to report that this does not work as they would have hoped. We talked in one of my last videos about this Dark One, a banished greater god, the embodiment of evil and chaos, whose power grows stronger and whose influence in the lands of SpireHelm is growing slowly. We know that the Death Storms are connected to him, and so it would likely be safe to assume that his influence and power might linger in the corpses of those unfortunate enough to touch a Death Storm. But since the Great Evil One is so feared, especially by the throne, this study was to be carried out in secret, with special permission from the higher echelons of the archive. And after completion, its contents were to be locked away in the Libris Electi, the restricted depths of the archive. When our chosen collector had made it to the barrows, he recorded his findings of the monster. Prowling around the burial mound was an entity of darkness. I will not disclose what I truly saw, but suffice it to say that the form it took caused even I to shudder. Not one single account has ever been identical. I am aware of only 2 consistencies in each tale. The eyewitnesses always saw what they most feared enveloped in deep shadow, and their eyes glowing deep and red. So this is where I decided to start my designs. Creatures of darkness and shadow, frightening to behold, and with glowing eyes. I'm still in art school right now, so I tend to jump between styles when it comes to my art, but I hope to improve and solidify a strong visual look for SpireHelm as we continue. However, since one of our biggest touchstones here is retro dark fantasy, I decided to make a sort of magazine spread for one of these pieces inspired by some of these old Wizard Drill posters. I absolutely love their evocative and straightforward design, and I thought it really fit for the vibe of this kind of dark, zombie-like creature. But let's get back to the Lurkers while I struggle through this design. You see, there's another aspect of these creatures that complicates the study even further. According to the study, there are individuals who can see what these creatures really look like. Who are these individuals? None other than the specters. Imagine you awake in the middle of the night to a loud sound. The last thing you would want to hear. Warning bells. You listen to the chimes, hoping for them to indicate a small threat. A bear or a wyvernling, hopefully nothing as bad as a pillaging raid. Your heart sinks as you hear the ominous melody ring out. A death storm approaches. Without time to gather your belongings, you make a run for it. Southward as fast as you can, barreling through fields of crops with the villagers that could keep up with you as you hear the winds strengthening in rage. Eventually, you feel the air grow cold and you're knocked to the ground unconscious as the storm barrels through your home. You should be dead. Somehow you were merely touched by the outermost winds of the storm. You can't see, your vision filled with a swirling darkness. But you lived. This is how specters come to be. These beings that just so happen to survive a death storm by being in the edge of its path are left behind permanently blind and occasionally tormented by the chaos left inside them, but alive nonetheless. But what this study came to realize is that this blindness that affects the specters may not be true blindness at all. However, in their world of darkness, they can see them, the Lurkers. They can see the creatures as if there is nothing between them but empty space. The specters claimed that they saw the unchanging form of this creature, but no amount of coercion nor interrogation brought them to describe the Lurker's true form to us, as though they are bound by some force to keep their observations privy from all others. The record goes on to say that they managed to capture a specimen by some miracle or maybe some magic, and brought it to the archive. The study is meant to continue there, but for now their essence and nature remains mystic and unknowable. Isn't that just awesome? I love this type of creativity for the archive. It's inspiring for me, and I hope you're all inspired to create something just as cool for all of us. I want to go over quickly why I think this particular idea is so effective for a collaborative process like this. I think it can be broken down into 3 reasons. First, mood. The essence of this idea fits the vibe and mood of SpireHelm so well. Gritty, classic, dark fantasy. A creature of chaos. A monster whose only drive is to devour and instill fear in others. It's something you would expect a fantasy hero to encounter in these lands. Second, implications and connections. Vincerus did a great job here of creating something that has significant implications in the kingdom of SpireHelm without potentially blocking future creativity from others. He also connected it to something else within the world that was already there, both with the death storms and the specters, which helps tie the world together and increase the believability. And third, it's versatile and inspiring. Remember, the goal of SpireHelm is to create this world together. As fun as it would be for Vincerus and I to write everything in the world, we would just end up with another fantasy like the ones you already know and love. I want this to be a group effort where you can point to an element of the world and say that was something I contributed to. And the Lurkers leave perfect room for this. Vincerus started with a simple study, but who's to say someone across the land hadn't captured one already? Where are his findings? Where are the stories of those who witnessed a Lurker unleash the horrors upon their own village? This idea leaves the door open for any one of you to pick up the pencil right where he put it down and create more. And I guess that's the invitation that I'll leave you with. Go make something. That idea you've been sitting in your mind with for months, get it out there. Some idea you got while watching this exact video? Write it in the comments, or better yet, submit it to the archive for all of us to enjoy. We're just getting started here, so the canvas is all yours. I really can't wait to see what we make together, so happy writing, and I'll see you next time.